Your Lord says, "Call on me and I will answer you." Those who are too proud to worship me will enter hell abject. According to the Quran, prayer is a person's turning sincerely to Allah and seeking help from Him, the Almighty, the Compassionate and Merciful, in the knowledge that He is a dependent being. Illness is one of those instances when a person feels this dependence most and draws closer to Allah. Furthermore, sickness is a test, devised in His wisdom, that takes place by His will and is a warning to remind people of the transience and imperfection of this life, and is also a source of recompense in the hereafter for the patient and submissive, meaning Allah can cure the ill. Human beings need oxygen and air pressure in order to live. Breathing is made possible by the oxygen in the atmosphere reaching the air sacs in our lungs. As elevation rises, however, atmospheric pressure goes down as the atmosphere becomes thinner. Therefore, the amount of oxygen entering the bloodstream declines and it becomes harder to breathe. As the air sacs grow narrow and contract, we feel as if we cannot breathe. Your Lord says, when Allah desires to guide someone, He expands His breast to Islam. When He desires to misguide someone, He makes his breast narrow and constricted as if he were climbing up into the sky. That is how Allah defiles those who have no faith. Your Lord says, Allah splits the seed and kernel. He brings forth the living from the dead and produces the dead out of the living. That is Allah, so how are you misguided? When a living thing dies, microorganisms quickly cause it to decompose. The dead body is thus divided up into organic molecules that mix with the soil and form the basic source of food for plants, animals, and ultimately humanity. Were it not for this nutritional cycle, life would not be possible. One of the properties of seas that has only recently been discovered is related in a verse of the Quran as follows. Your Lord says, He has let loose the two seas, converging together with a barrier between them they do not break through. This property of the seas, that is, that they meet and yet do not mix, has only very recently been discovered by oceanographers. Because of the physical force called surface tension, the waters of neighboring seas do not mix. Caused by the difference in the density of their waters, surface tension prevents them from mingling with one another, just as if a thin wall were between them. While it is stated in the Quran that it is easy for Allah to bring man back to life after death, people's fingerprints are particularly emphasized. Your Lord says, yes, we are able to put together in perfect order the very tips of His fingers. The emphasis on fingerprints has a very special meaning. This is because shapes and details on everyone's fingerprint are unique to each individual. Every person who is alive or who has ever lived in this world has a set of unique fingerprints. Furthermore, even identical twins having the very same DNA sequence have their own set of fingerprints. Humanity's exploration of space was accelerated with the Soviet satellite, Sputnik, on October 4, 1957, which carried along the first man to ever leave Earth's atmosphere, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin. On July 20, 1969, the American astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first human being ever to set foot on the moon. Your Lord says, O company of jinn and human beings, if you are able to pierce through the confines of the heavens and earth, pierce through them. You will not pierce through except with a clear authority. The Pharaoh regarded himself as a deity and responded with slanders and threats to Prophet Musa. This arrogant attitude lasted until he was faced with the threat of death through drowning. The Quran relates that Pharaoh immediately turned to belief when faced with Allah's punishment. Your Lord says, we brought the tribe of Israel across the sea, and Pharaoh and his troops pursued them out of tyranny and enmity. Then, when he was on the point of drowning, Pharaoh, said, I believe that there is no God but him in whom the tribe of Israel believes. I am one of the Muslims. Your Lord says, and we made a fount of molten copper flow out for him. One of Allah's great blessings to Prophet Sulaiman was a fount of molten copper. This can be understood in several ways. By the use of melted copper, it may be referring to the existence, at his time, of an advanced technology that employed electricity. We know that copper is one of the best metals for conducting electricity and heat, and as a result completes the basis of the electrical industry, which uses much of the copper produced in the world. The expression flow out may indicate that electricity can be used in many fields. In one verse, we are informed that mountains are not motionless as they seem, but are in constant motion. Your Lord says, you see the mountains you reckon to be solid, going past like clouds. This motion of mountains is caused by the movement of the Earth's crust that they are located on. The Earth's crust floats over the mantle layer, which is denser. It was at the beginning of the 20th century when, for the first time in history, a German scientist by the name of Alfred Wegener proposed that the continents of the Earth had been attached together when it first formed, but then drifted in different directions, and thus separated as they moved away from each other.